Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. We are so glad you're here with us today to unpack another pretty complex topic.
It's great to be here. And honestly, today's discussion is one of those that might just completely change how you look at the technology we're all, using every day.
I think that's a safe bet. Usually when we talk about AI, conversation gets stuck. It's always in one of two lanes.
Mhm.
It's either, hey, look at this funny poem ChatGPT wrote about my cat, or it's the really dark side. Oh my God, Terminator is coming for our jobs.
Right. The classic binary. It's either, a perfect utopia or it's a total apocalypse.
Exactly. But while everyone is busy arguing about the robots, there is a much bigger, much more tangible story happening behind the scenes. It's not about the code, it's about concrete and copper and cash. We're
Yeah.
diving into the hidden economics of AI.
That's the real key. We think of AI as this, ethereal cloud that's just kind of floating around us. But the premise we need to start with is that intelligence, it's not just a human trait anymore. It has become a resource.
A resource like oil or gas.
Exactly like oil or gas
No.
or gold.
Yeah.
It is being mined, it's being refined, and it is being sold.
And like any gold rush, it has its own brutal economy. So today we're going to look at that real economy. We're talking about the infrastructure arms race, the staggering energy bills, and the big question, is this all just a massive financial bubble that's about to burst?
It's a heavy lift, but it's essential to understand because this isn't just tech news anymore. This is shifting the global economy.
So let's get into it. Part one, the infrastructure arms race, or as I like to call it, the new gold rush.
It really is a gold rush. And you know that old saying about a gold rush?
Don't dig for gold, sell shovels.
Exactly. You want to be the one selling the shovels.
And right now, the biggest shovel seller on the planet, the company that effectively owns the hardware store, that has to be NVIDIA.
Without a doubt. I mean, the transformation of that company is, it's hard to overstate. NVIDIA used to be known for making chips for video games.
Or just making your graphics look good.
That was their job. Today, they're capitalized at roughly $4.3 trillion.
4.3 trillion. I mean, that number is so big, it just loses all meaning. That's way bigger than Apple.
It is. And the reason for it is scarcity. Right now, NVIDIA is effectively the only company that can manufacture the specific high-end graphics processing units, the GPUs, that you need to train these networks.
So without these chips, there's no ChatGPT, no Gemini.
Nothing. There is no AI industry. It all stops.
It's the bottleneck of the entire revolution. I was reading some reports that the demand is so high, there's a thriving black market for these chips.
Oh, it's not far off a drug deal. The standard price for one of their H100 units is, around $10,000. But on the secondary market, we've seen them go for $40,000 per unit. You have startup founders meeting in parking lots to get a few of these things.
That is wild. But it's not just the startups, right? The big numbers are coming from the giants, Amazon, Google, Meta.
The capital expenditures is just staggering. In 2024 alone, those four companies spend about $251 billion on infrastructure.
Hang on, let's just pause on that. 251 billion in 1 year.
Yes, and that's a 62% increase from the year before. Microsoft alone is planning to spend another $80 billion by 2025.
It feels almost like panic spending. Corporate FOMO. Where is all that money going?
Well, it's going into data centers. But don't think of a server room. Think of hangars the size of airports, just filled with thousands of servers.
Okay.
And here's the detail that really puts it into perspective. A single one of these high-end AI server racks costs about $250,000.
So one server rack costs the same as a house.
Yes. And you need thousands of them. You are filling an airport hangar with thousands of houses just to run software.
Okay, so that's the cost to build it. But what about for us, for businesses? I mean, I pay $20 a month for ChatGPT. That doesn't seem like enough to cover a mortgage on a server.
Well, that's the consumer price. It's heavily subsidized to get you hooked. The real economy is in business to business. We are moving toward a token economy.
The token economy. Explain that.
So companies like OpenAI, they don't charge by the hour. They charge by the token. And a token is basically a piece of a word like 4 characters.
Okay, so it's like a taxi meter that's running in the background. Every syllable costs you money.
Exactly. Let's look at GPT-5 pricing. It's around $1.25 for a million input tokens and $10 for a million output tokens. And when you hear $1.25, it sounds cheap.
Yeah, that sounds like nothing.
But imagine you're a law firm. You're not asking for a poem. You are feeding it thousands of pages of contracts to analyze every single day.
Right. The meter just never stops running.
Precisely. For a mid-sized business, this intelligence rent can easily hit $100,000 a month.
100,000 a month just for the software to think.
Yes. Intelligence has become a utility bill, just like your electricity. You don't own the brain, you just rent it by the thought.
Which is a perfect segue to the next big cost. We've talked money, let's talk physics. We call it the cloud, which sounds so light and eco-friendly, but this stuff has a massive physical footprint.
It is heavily physical. We have to shatter that illusion that digital means green. Every time you ask a chatbot a question, a processor spins up somewhere and generates heat. A standard ChatGPT query uses way more energy than a Google search.
How much more?
Some estimates say 10 to 30 times more.
Wow.
And you have to distinguish between two things here, training and inference.
Okay, break that down.
Training is teaching the AI is like sending it to school for 20 years. That takes massive, massive energy. Just training GPT-3 took about 1.3 gigawatt hours of energy.
And in human terms, that is.
That's enough electricity to power 120 American homes for a full year.
For one model.
For one model.
Mhm.
And that process also produced 550 tons of CO2. Then you have inference. That's when you and I actually use it.
Mhm.
And well, one query is small, multiply that by hundreds of millions of people.
The consumption just explodes. And they get hot, right? I assume they need a lot of cooling.
Incredibly hot, and that often means water cooling. When Microsoft was training GPT-4, they used about 43.5 million liters of water in 1 month.
43 million liters.
It's equivalent to the water consumption of a town of 30,000 people. Just evaporated to keep the servers from melting.
That is actually kind of horrifying. A town's worth of water. And this is becoming a national issue for some countries, isn't it? I read something about Ireland.
Ireland is the perfect case study. It's a hub for data centers because of tax laws and a cool climate. In 2015, data centers used about 5% of Ireland's electricity.
Okay, manageable.
By 2023, that number hit 21%.
A fifth of the entire country's power.
Yes. Data centers in Ireland now consume more electricity than all the urban homes in the country combined.
That just sounds completely unsustainable. Keep scaling, we're just going to physically run out of power.
We are hitting a wall, which is why the industry is looking for, well, for some pretty radical alternatives. And this is where it gets a little sci-fi. Have you heard of biocomputers?
I have, and this is the part of the research that made me just stop and stare at the wall. You have to tell the listeners what this is.
It sounds like a movie plot, but it's real. There's a startup called Cortical Labs that grew rat brain neurons in a petri dish and connected them to a computer.
Wait, real biological neurons from a rat? On a circuit board?
Yes. And they taught these neurons to play a virtual version of the video game Pong.
The neurons played Pong.
They did. And here's the kicker.
Yeah.
The biological neurons learned how to play in 5 minutes. A traditional AI algorithm took 90 minutes to learn the same thing.
So biology was faster and I'm guessing way more energy efficient?
Millions of times more energy efficient. There's another startup called Final Spark that is already renting out mini brains for $500 an hour.
Renting mini brains for $500 an hour. That is a sentence I never expected to say.
The selling point is that energy efficiency. If we can't power silicon anymore, maybe we switch to biology.
That is fascinating and deeply unsettling. Okay, let's shift from physical brains to human ones. Part 3, the labor paradox.
This is where the story completely flips on its head. For decades, we were told automation would come for blue-collar jobs first, right? The truck drivers, the factory workers.
Right, the advice was learn to code. You know, if you work with your head, you're safe.
Precisely. But this AI revolution is doing the exact opposite. It's not coming for manual labor first. It's coming for the intellectualists.
The desk jobs.
The desk jobs. Microsoft's data shows journalists, translators, financial analysts, and yeah, even programmers are in the danger zone.
So the people who did everything right are actually on the chopping block.
Because AI generates text and code faster and cheaper. Meanwhile, who's safe? Nurses, mechanics, plumbers, cooks. Jobs that require physical dexterity in the real world. A robot is still terrible at fixing a leaky sink.
It's a total inversion of value, but it's not all destruction, is it? There are new jobs popping up.
Oh yeah, with some massive price tags. We're seeing the rise of the prompt engineer. This is someone who specializes in just talking to the models to get the best result. They're listing jobs for up to $300,000 a year.
$300,000 just to type questions into a chatbot. Is that a real job or a bubble job?
That is the big question. It's real for now. Then you have synthetic data engineers earning up to $220,000.
What on earth is a synthetic data engineer?
Well, we're actually running out of human data to train the models on. We've scraped the whole internet. So now we need engineers to create high-quality fake data to keep training them.
So we're paying humans to make fake data for robots because the robots read everything we ever wrote.
It's a very strange loop. But for small businesses, there's another risk here. It's called vendor lock-in.
The Hotel California problem.
A perfect analogy. A small startup can't afford a data center. So they rent everything from Amazon Web Services or Microsoft. Their AI tools, their storage, everything. It's convenient.
Until the price goes up.
Exactly. If Amazon raises the rent, what can you do? It's incredibly expensive to move. 70% of U.S. small businesses are critically dependent on a single cloud provider. They're trapped.
You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
You're building your house on rented land, and the landlord knows it.
Which brings us to the big, scary question, part 4, the bubble. We have these crazy salaries, $40,000 chips, billions in spending. Is this sustainable, or is this just a massive hype bubble?
To understand this, you have to look at history. The economist Carlota Perez described the tech cycle. It always goes. Eruption, mania, crash, and then synergy.
And I'm guessing we're not in the synergy phase.
No, we are squarely in the mania phase.
The mania?
Think back to the dot-com bubble. Anything with .com and the name got funding. Pets.com, Webvan. It was pure euphoria. We're seeing the same thing now. In 2019, VC investment in AI was about $40 billion. In 2025, it's over $100 billion.
So money is just flooding in.
But here's the problem. Profitability. Reports suggest only about 5% of these AI companies are actually profitable. The rest are just burning cash.
And we've already seen some cracks, right? The humane AI pin.
Oh, the perfect example. It was hyped as the iPhone killer, a wearable AI pin. They raised $230 million.
And then it launched.
And it was a complete disaster. The reviews were brutal.
I remember hotter than the sun against my skin.
And it just doesn't work. It was slow. It overheated. It shows that just throwing money and the letters AI at a product doesn't guarantee it works.
So what bursts the bubble? What makes the music stop?
It could be one of three things. Strict government regulation. The energy crisis we talked about. We just physically run out of power. Or, and this is the most likely, investor disappointment.
They just get tired of waiting for the profits.
Exactly. The funding dries up.
But a crash doesn't mean the tech just vanishes, does it?
No, and that is the key lesson from the dot-com crash. Pets.com died. But Amazon and Google didn't. They emerged stronger because they had real infrastructure. The internet didn't go away. It just matured.
So in this crash, the hype wrappers, the apps that are just a thin layer over ChatGPT, they would die. But NVIDIA, Microsoft, the ones building the railroads, they survive.
Precisely. We move from the mania phase to the synergy phase, where the tech actually becomes useful and integrated into society.
So let's bring it all home. Part 5, what does this mean for you listening right now? How do you survive this shift?
The most dangerous thing you can do is just watch. You can't be a passive observer. You have to participate.
So don't run from it.
Use the tools. Let AI write your boring emails, automate the routine stuff, but focus on finding your uniquely human edge.
What is the human edge now? If AI can write code and poems, what's left?
Soft skills, organization, taste, style, judgment. In a world where AI can generate infinite content, the value shifts from creating to curating.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, an important client email. The AI can draft 50 versions in a second. But only you know which version strikes the right tone. Only you know the history with that client. The winner isn't the person who types the email. It's the person who orchestrates the result.
So we're moving from being the violin players to being the conductors of the orchestra.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Knowledge is shifting from something you store in your head to something you rent via subscription. Your value is in how you use that rental.
That's a huge shift in mindset. Before we go, we always like to leave our listeners with one final provocative thought.
Okay, so we talked about the environmental costs. Here's the ultimate inequality scenario. Imagine strict carbon taxes and water limits are put in place. Suddenly, running these AI models becomes incredibly expensive.
Right. The price of tokens goes through the roof.
So if the cost of intelligence skyrockets, AI doesn't become this democratizing force. It becomes a luxury good. Only the richest corporations and the richest individuals can afford the really smart assistants.
So the rich get a super intelligent AI team, and the rest of us are left with, well, just our own brains.
It could create a cognitive divide wider than anything we've ever seen before. Intelligence itself becomes a premium subscription.
That is a terrifying thought, but something we definitely need to be watching out for.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a wild ride through the economics of the future.
Thanks for listening. Keep thinking critically.
See you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.